Did you get to work? I'm just getting us streaming, so okay, great. All right. Well, give me 2 minutes.
I think also get started. Sure. Yeah.
I can't get it.
Yeah, it's like nice to see. This ended the This is like, no, I know. I texted Jen. Let's grab photos.
Hey, is this the health and fitness?
No. This is the oil presentation.
Okay.
Oh, great. I didn't print out yours. No, it's fine. It's on. It is on. It's on every one of the board members' tablets. You need one, so that
I don't need one. My colleagues presenting.
Okay.
Sorry, I was under the impression that people would have like handouts and stuff.
It's okay. They did. Like,
The board member.
And it's on our website, so if people are not board members and don't have, go to our website and get it off.
Want to grab a hard copy of this?
Yes, of course.
I'm Evan Myers.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah, they have the whole presentation on their tablets.
Okay.
And so they will be able to give it to her.
Okay. If we make an announcement at the beginning that if people want to follow along, they can
Yeah.
do so. They can get your website. Okay. Thank you.
They are, yeah. And they need to pass these out. I've been trying to get them out, but if anyone can also take a set over to. Yeah, grab the guy. The one that sounds like it. I need you to keep buying like a little bit of time.
All right, everybody, if you can find your seats, please, we're going to get started. Thank you all for coming very much. I just have a few preliminary things before we get underway. First of all, I just want to thank all of you for being here. I want to say thanks to the folks from the public, but also the folks especially from the board, because there are a lot of folks who are on the board who couldn't make it with very good reasons for not being able to be here tonight. And so it's important to that everybody else was here so that we would have a forum. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who came out and is here in person because it's very important to do that. I also want to thank Hunter for hosting us. They've done a wonderful job in laying everything out for us and getting us all set up. So we really, really appreciate that. And their president, Jennifer Robb, is a great friend of the board. And I also want to recognize Taina Barrero, our member, who really helped us also set that up. I also want to recognize our fantastic staff who, as you can imagine, had to do extra work to get everything ready for tonight. Not only an in-person meeting, but also an afternoon meeting. So thank you, Will and Saida and Marat. And also I want to recognize our intern, Leo, who's here, who is passing out the presentation that we're going to hear first. The last thing I want to mention is we're kind of in a race against time here a little bit because our light is going to run out at some point. That's just the way of things. So, you know, I always ask for folks to be as concise as possible while still getting your points out, but I'm just reiterating that again for everybody tonight because, again, we have to try and get through everything while we can still all see each other. So with that, let's turn to the first item on the agenda, which is the hearing on the Loyola School ESA application. So if you're ready to present, and if folks don't have the printout in front of them yet, just raise your hand so that Leo can find you and he'll give you one. So yeah, with that, I will turn it over to Loyola. Go ahead.
Good evening, Shelley Friedman, representing Loyola, I didn't watch representing Loyola School. This is an application that this board saw by Zoom at the landmark stage, so we're prepared to do this out of respect for your time very, very quickly. We have a number of people there that can answer your questions, but I'm going to provide a summary of the application. Joining me tonight is the head of Loyola, Emily. We have Amy Harris, the project architect, Amy Beal Carter from APRF, who provided the environmental assessment statement, and my colleague, Elena Stova. We'll all have to answer the questions you might have. Loyola School is at 65 East 83rd, the northwest corner. It is a school organized under and operated under the authority of the Jesuit Society. It is seeking a variance, the Board of Standards and Appeals, for a 220 square foot increase in allowable lot coverage. This boils down to 3% increase over what's allowed for lot coverage, approximately a 40 by 5.5 piece of what is going to be an expansion in their rear yard. The rear yard of the school is totally surrounded by other buildings that are under the auspices of either the Archdiocese or the Jesuits. The school is at the corner of 83rd and Park. There are 3 Jesuit occupied buildings to its west, running toward Madison Avenue on the north side of the street. And those 3 buildings and the school represent the zoning lot, which is the subject of the variance application. Immediately adjacent to the north is the parish house, which is not on the zoning lot, but is also a Jesuit facility. And north of that is, of course, St. Ignatius of Loyola Church at the corner of 84th and Park Avenue. The school is seeking to extend its school building into this rear yard. It cannot be seen from the public way. It is not taller than the existing building that's there now. This application was reviewed by your committee at the landmarks stage. It was unanimously approved. It went on to landmarks, where it was unanimously approved at the landmarks commission. And so we're now circling back on the land use side to obtain the variance, this minor variance necessary so that the project can go forward. To our knowledge, no opposition to this application. No one appeared in opposition at the last community board meeting. No one appeared in opposition at the landmarks commission. But again, that may well mean that because this building can only be perceived, at least from the street level, if you are occupying one of the buildings that are under the auspices of the Jesuits or the Archdiocese. The architect is here. You'll see a very basic set of drawings in the package that we provided. The package includes your own resolution on top, followed by the landmark certificate of appropriateness. followed by the photographs and drawings, which show you the extent of this very necessary extension into the rear courtyard, followed by our statement of findings, which reviews the 5 findings that the BSA requires under 7221 for the approval of the variance. I'm in the interest of recognizing that this is your first outdoor meeting, and in fact, we're your first case, for which we consider kind of special privilege. I'll end it there and take whatever questions may come from the board.
Thank you. So I don't see any questions from the public, so let's go to Michelle. And
Yes, I would just, all things, if everything is exactly as it was in the last presentation, and thank you, if everything was exactly as it was in the last presentation, and exactly as presented where we made our resolution, I would like to move to approve.
is there a second? I see a second. Okay, great. All right. I'm going to call the question.
Second,
Some seconds, great. Okay, anyone close to that? Okay, secretaries, take it away.
Do I need a mic?
Yeah, can we grab that mic?
here, well, thank you.
Yes? That's okay with me, yeah. So we're just gonna, if there's anyone opposed, raise your hand, otherwise we'll take it as a, we'll do it. We're gonna use
So-
the Zoom procedure.
Yeah, raise your hand if you are voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause.
Your mic's not on.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you are voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause. Okay, seeing none, the motion passes.
Thank you. All right, next, we're going to hear the presentation on the Health and Fitness Citywide Text Amendment. Planning here. Getting your mic. Go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you for having us. Good to see you all in person after a while on Zoom. My name is Phil Williamson. I'm the team leader at the Department of City Planning. We're one of the main liaisons with Community Board 8. And we're here tonight to talk about a health and fitness text amendment that has been referred into public review. We've referred in about May. And what we're seeking from you is your comments and recommendations by July 27th. So that deadline is coming up. But we're here to try and tell you all about the text amendment and answer any questions you might have. I'm here with my colleague, Sandra, who is from our Housing and Economic Division. He's a specialist in this type of subject matter and will be presenting to you. And I will stick around for questions also.
Let me just interrupt very briefly. Everybody, board members, you have the presentation on your tablet, so you can find it there. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much. Again, my name is Dylan. I'm a senior planner at the Department of City Planning and the project manager on this citywide text amendment. I haven't used a piece of paper in a year and a half, so I hope you'll forgive me for looking at notes on my phone. And as you heard, you have the presentation on your tablet, but I will move fairly quickly and just sort of hit the highlights, and then I'm happy to take any questions that you have. So at its core, this is a citywide zone text amendment to reduce barriers for small businesses that provide health-related amenities to communities. So this is really focused on gyms, spas, and massage therapy studios. So today there is a special permit that is required to open these kinds of facilities nearly everywhere in New York City. This is a special permit through the Board of Standards and Appeals. And this was created in the 1970s with the direct intention of addressing commercial sex that was occurring in health clubs and businesses called, at the time, massage parlors, mostly in and around Times Square. And so this was kind of a novel use of zoning to try to address this issue through the land use regulation. Commercial gyms at the time didn't really exist in the way that they exist today. So New York City had some larger nonprofits like the YMCA and larger health clubs and community centers, but the range of commercial gyms and fitness studios that we're now very familiar with didn't really exist or were pretty rare at the time. And so when this was created, there wasn't really the expectation that there would be this wide range of very legitimate businesses that people desire and communities like that would be caught up in this special permit. And things have changed quite a lot. There's been a lot of growth in this industry, and there's also been change in the regulation of massage therapy. So massage therapists are licensed by the state of New York, by the New York State Education Department, and there's a registry of all licensed massage therapists that is publicly available online. So despite this, the special permit creates significant burdens for small businesses. It typically takes about 6 or 7 months for a business to go through the process. So it involves community board review, but also involves providing a lot of documentation to the Board of Standards and Appeals. It requires these businesses to go through a criminal background check. So if a martial arts studio wants to open up or a Pilates studio wants to open up, all of the owners and operators have to undergo a Department of Investigation background check. It also limits the locations where these businesses can be. So unlike most commercial uses, like retail uses and service uses, gyms are much more limited in the city. So most C1 districts, our local retail streets, typically don't allow these kinds of uses, even if they were to go through the special permit. So places where we allow laundromats and grocery stores and restaurants don't allow gyms and spas and massage therapy. And finally, at a time when vacancy rates are quite high in many retail streets, we want to be sure that our zoning is sufficiently flexible so that businesses that, especially businesses in growing industries like the health and fitness industry, can occupy these spaces and provide amenities in communities. So moving into the details of the proposal, the Department of City Planning is proposing to remove this special permit entirely. In zoning, they're referred to as physical, culture, or health establishments. We would be getting rid of this sort of antiquated and confusing phrase. And in its place, we would be allowing gyms and spas. We call them health and fitness establishments. And we would be allowing these like other commercial uses. So there was a slight distinction in terms of size. So the smaller facilities under 10,000 square feet in floor area would be use group 6. So these would be the same use group category as things like restaurants, laundromats, and these would be allowed in all commercial and manufacturing districts. And then the largest facilities that are over 10,000 square feet, so things like large Blink and Equinox and Planet Fitness, those would be use group 9 zoning. So those would be limited to C2 districts and higher, as well as manufacturing districts. And they would also be permitted in our highest density C1 districts. So C1 8 districts, C1 9 districts, and C1 districts that are mapped with R9 and R10. C1 overlays that are mapped with R9 and R10 districts. So in the Upper East Side, this pretty much means that most C1 districts would allow those larger facilities, and other commercial districts would also allow those larger facilities. And then for massage therapy, we would be removing the special permit, and we would be treating licensed massage therapists the same way that we treat other ambulatory healthcare uses. So because they're licensed by the state of New York, these would be treated in zoning the same as a physical therapy office or a psychiatry office or a doctor's office. So these would be use group 4, a community facility, or they could be categorized as use group 6 as a healthcare office. And this would allow licensed massage therapy studios in commercial districts and manufacturing districts, as well as residential districts, because those permit those ambulatory healthcare uses. but the unlicensed massage is still not permitted anywhere in New York City. And so the zoning, it continues to have all of the same prohibitions for unlicensed massage therapy that would not allow any business to offer services that they call massage or body rub or reflexology or whatever name they use by a person who is not a licensed massage therapist. And then finally, just to touch on noise and vibration regulations. So when gyms come to the Board of Standards and Appeals for a special permit, the board occasionally imposes conditions related to noise and vibration. These are to address concerns from communities and are things like additional flooring or mats or insulation or limiters on the stereo system. And so to maintain this kind of protection for communities, we are creating a noise and vibration performance standard in the zoning so that all facilities that have weights or exercise equipment or have a likelihood to create noise and vibration would have to have an acoustical engineer present documentation to the Department of Buildings showing that the space is designed adequately to meet national noise and vibration standards. So this would apply to all what we're calling high intensity uses, so things like weights or a lot of machinery, but things like youth martial arts or yoga or spas would not have to demonstrate compliance with those additional noise and vibration standards. They would just need to meet the New York City noise code. I will pause there. As Scott said, this was referred out to the referred out by the City Planning Commission on May 19th. It's going to all community boards and borough boards and borough presidents across the city. It's open for public, for comments from the boards until July 27th. And then it would go back to the City Planning Commission for a public hearing and vote later in the summer, and to the City Council for a vote likely in the fall. So thank you very much, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the public or from board members? Sure. Can we get Chuck and Mike? Leo is gonna just bring them up in just a sec.
When you're talking about the noise requirements, will that cover loud music? Because if you have the Peloton type things that are made by loud music and stuff like that, that's also vibration. Would that be covered in the kinds of requirements that they have to submit to the building department?
Yes, they would. So the requirements include, so currently the noise code exists as a retroactive tool that has limitations on noise. But the noise code doesn't include low frequency noise. So if there's something that is very heavy in bass played through a stereo, that is not always covered by the noise code. And so these go beyond that, and those vibration standards that we're referencing in the performance standards go to a lower decibel level that would capture things like really loud music that might be played on a stereo.
Marco.
Thank you so much. You mentioned that you have noise and vibration. What happens with the quality of air inside? By code, it is required to have 20% of ventilation. Look, we are right here, open because of the COVID. Now, when you do exercise, you have more dust. The quality of air is very poor. Are you going to regulate that too?
So that's a great question. So the zoning won't have any, the zoning typically doesn't control things that are really inside the envelope of the building. So that all sort of occurs through the New York City, through the health department and health code regulations. And so no, there's nothing in here that really relates to the indoor air quality.
You have to mention that part. Air quality, whoever agency regulate that will be different. But you have to put as a part of the noise and vibration. That's my point of view.
There's someone in the back. I can't tell quite who it is. Oh, it's Sharon Pope. Yeah, go ahead, Sharon. Can someone can just pass the mic down to Sharon?
Marco, I don't have a sense as to how the massage therapy businesses, I don't have a sense from this text as to how it can prevent sexual activities taking place in these massage parlors. You'll forgive me for being very direct about this. I raise this because it has become a very significant issue, in particular with the outer boroughs in certain areas, like, for example, Corona, Queens. And I'm concerned that with this text, it could possibly lead to more of those types of businesses. And it is possible that more of them could even locate here in Manhattan, and in particular to Community Board A. So I'm wondering why, are you making it easier?
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the question. So we work very closely with the mayor's office to end gender-based violence and the mayor's office of special enforcement on these issues. So the way it really plays out today is the legitimate licensed massage therapists in some cases will go through the special permit process, and they will go through this few-month review and potentially get a permit to operate. But the illegitimate businesses that are offering massage, that are not licensed massage therapists and may be engaging in commercial sex, they aren't going through the special permit process today. They are just renting a storefront and opening up and operating. And what occurs today is that the zoning has a provision that says adult physical culture establishments are basically massage. The way it's worded today is massage by a person of the opposite sex who is not a massage therapist is a prohibited use. Obviously, that's a very sort of heteronormative and antiquated thing to have in zoning, but we basically have modified and updated that definition to say that a business that is not any business that is offering massage by an unlicensed massage therapist is prohibited in New York City. And so what that means is, rather than, if the city doesn't want to go in and arrest an individual on charges of prostitution or engaging in commercial sex, what this does is it creates a tool where the city can go in and say, this business is offering a service that is not legal, and we can issue fines and we can shut down the business. And so it's a much more nuanced tool to use the civil enforcement mechanism. So in some ways, the short version is we are not really changing anything related to unlicensed massage. It's prohibited today. It will continue to be prohibited, and the mayor's office of special enforcement can still use zoning as a tool. The one change is we've just kind of updated the language around that to be sort of more appropriate in this in this time.
Michelle.
Thank you very much. I'm not comfortable with this. I think it takes oversight, some oversight, or as much as we could be afforded. It takes it away from the community board. Now, when a future proprietor wants to open and they want some variance, or they have to come before us. We have an opportunity to question them about prior business efforts, about their background, about who the workers will be, about all the compliances. To have it happen as of right takes all that away from us, and frankly, I don't see a benefit. Even in the case, and I'm not even limiting it to the issues that could arise with massage therapy, because even with you attempting to enforce the fact that it's only by a licensed massage therapist, yeah, that could be the person who opens the business. There's nobody there to really question who is in his employs. It's almost like a licensed electrician, but his apprentices do not necessarily have the credentials that he has. But this kind of thing, to me, puts neighborhoods at risk. It takes an additional layer of oversight away, and I don't really see the purpose of it. I think we have a load of these establishments, fitness establishments. They seem to be important enough to the neighborhood and lucrative enough to the developers to go through the process that currently exists. And I think that's good, because I don't think that we necessarily need any neighborhood to be overrun with these as of right. So to me, it would be akin, you'll find that once you allow big box stores in, and if the zoning is changed for that, you'll have more big box stores than anything else. And to me, that might happen with these kinds of establishments on all levels. So I would be opposed to this change for all those reasons, but primarily because it completely eliminates input from the community board or investigation from the community board. Thank you.
Elizabeth Rose.
I really appreciate that you all are trying to take a modern look at this particular regulation from all angles. And I personally think that this is a wonderful change and would support it. My two questions. One, how would a prospective gym owner know that they have to comply with the noise and vibration section? It sounds like that's a little bit too open-ended, for who has to submit their acoustical engineering information and who doesn't. And so I would suggest some way of making that as clear cut as possible. You do or you don't, if you check these 5 boxes, you do. If you check none of those boxes, you don't. Something that makes it really, really crystal clear of whether you should or not. And obviously, there will be people who won't check the box, who will get complaints, and there needs to be some sort of an approach to cure if somebody is violating or there are significant neighborhood concerns. The second is, it's not your job to investigate sex crimes and sexual establishments, but it might be helpful in the selling of this text amendment to also, I imagine, that world and the enforcement of that world has changed just as much as the gym world and the physical fitness world has changed in the past 40 years. It might be helpful to this community board to have a better understanding of what are the different avenues that the various appropriate agencies are using that are more modern to address the kinds of concerns that people may have that this could give rise to greater sex business activity in this community.
So just to quickly respond to the first question, that's something we really grappled with, and we tried to think, we tried to name specific activities or specific kinds of equipment. In 5 years there would be a new gym we had never considered, and so we really worked closely with the Board of Standards and Appeals and the Department of Buildings to try to think about how we could be more specific with this. So the Department of Buildings would be the arbiter in terms of when somebody is seeking a building permit. The Department of Buildings would say, you are a high intensity facility and you're required to submit documentation. The way we're thinking about it is things that have significant weights or machinery. So something like a Soul Cycle or a lot of treadmills where there's cardiovascular equipment being used in unison that can create vibrations, that would be high intensity. Anything with heavy free weights, outside of kind of like a 2-pound weight for an aerobics class, we would think of as high intensity. Punching bags that are attached to the frame, to the ceiling, we would think of as high intensity. So I think we will try to put more specificity within the City Planning Commission report and work with the apartment buildings to see if we can have more guidance for business owners and also for communities about that. But I think it's a great question. And then on the second one, so we work again. We work very closely with the Office to End Gender-Based Violence, and they're the group in the city that thinks more comprehensively about how the regulations sort of interface with policies to reduce human trafficking, sex trafficking, labor trafficking, and what they see as valuable about this is that the city really is trying to move away from prosecuting individuals who are involved in sex work, and move more toward going after the businesses and the organizations that are engaged in that kind of activity. And so we have maintained in the zoning that ability to shut down the business and not go in and basically do a raid, and in a way that can be pretty dangerous for people, and arresting people who may be sort of coerced into that kind of activity. So I appreciate the sentiment, and if there's more information that we can provide to the community board, we'd be happy to do that.
Let's go to Lowell next, and then it's going to be Ed, then Peter, then Valerie, then Rebecca.
Yes, you have the version, does Elizabeth talk about that?
Yeah, looking at the proposal map for licensed massage, it's showing me every single building.
Yes, so community facilities are allowed in residential areas as well, and so these rules for licensed massage would be consistent with other healthcare uses. So those basically that's a map. If we were to show you a map of where doctors' offices are allowed, where physical therapy offices are allowed, it would be the exact same map. And we're saying if these are licensed health professionals, and we think that they are consistent with those kinds. From a land use perspective, it's consistent with that kind of zoning.
So you're going from the zoning where currently now similar to a gym to put it in everywhere.
With licensed massage therapy, yes.
Okay, Ed's next.
Thank you. We'll ask my first question. I'd like to build on, I think, what Lowell's getting at, maybe, and what Sharon was talking about. And I don't want to get overly legal here, but when I hear, look, we're not enforcing, I get it. So what concerns me is you can't do indirectly what you can't do directly in the law. Can't be done. It's not allowed. They don't mean. So what concerns me is exactly what Lowell said, is that the Department of Buildings, which, all due respect to the hardworking civil servants of the Department of Buildings, sometimes, the Board of Elections and the Department of Buildings, sometimes I think they're in a race, and I'll leave it to the group to know where that's going. And if they're charged with enforcement and handing out these permits, and the DEA isn't enforcing anything, and you're not going to enforce this, and whether it's the raid or not, what concerns me ostensibly is, it's the illegal activity. Let's be honest, okay? It's the illegal activity that you're worried about. And as Lowell's pointing out, they're not coming and asking for a permit. They're not being quite upfront about it, but they're looking quite indirectly about it. And that concerns me a great deal because, as Lowell just pointed out, that's basically on every block. Okay, so that means it's across from the schools and all that. And I'm just, as a parent, kids, walking around the streets, I'm just, throwing it out there, and I'm a little concerned. And my question from all this diatribe for you is, have you been talking to the NYPD and anyone else in terms of, how we do this, and maybe court counsel, because I'm just a little concerned about that.
Yeah, so we have talked with NYPD about this. They currently don't use the zoning in any of their enforcement activities, so they were basically agnostic to the change. We've also, I sit on an interagency human trafficking task force, so we share this. We've been sharing this with the DA offices and the sex crime units at the DA offices. They similarly were, saw the value of this proposal and didn't think it would impinge on their work. And I think that the main office that really engages with enforcement related to commercial sex within massage, or businesses calling themselves massage, is the mayor's office of special enforcement. And they actually do, they have a pretty robust enforcement program. And so if a community board contacts the office of special enforcement, they currently will go in, ask for massage therapy licenses from individuals. If they can't be provided, they will issue building violations and shut the business down. And they think this proposal is, doesn't in any way sort of change that tool, and they are very supportive of this.
All right, next is Valerie. No, Peter, yeah, you're fine.
Sorry, for Barry's couple of questions. How do we define spa?
So we've been thinking about spa as mostly facilities that have kind of aquatic components, so things with steam rooms and saunas, and so it is a little bit confusing because you have businesses that are really nail salons that use the word spa, and so I don't think there's kind of like an overly specific definition, but we're anticipating businesses that are really sort of wellness based. You go in, they provide different treatments, and often sort of have those kinds of aquatic facilities as well.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because you're saying here low impact activities such as yoga and a spa, which I wouldn't say is an activity, won't require compliance with additional noise and vibration standards. And I mean, when I think of the spa, sometimes I think of a pool, and they would have equipment that would have noise and vibration, and you're specifically exempting them out.
Right. So if the business has any of that kind of equipment that I was talking about, they would be kicked into that high intensity group. So if it's something that's really just kind of like saunas and steam rooms, and they don't have a weight room as well, then we would consider it low intensity.
Well, I don't think there's really a correlation there, but okay, we'll send in comments. The other thing is you talk about a certification for noise and vibration. One of the abuses that we see here at the community board is this self-certification by architects in some cases with respect to building projects. So how are you going to, you said that there were going to be acoustical engineers that were going to sign off on this type of noise and vibration. I don't know about any code of ethics amongst acoustical engineers that there would be any ramifications, and consequently, I don't see how the BSA is going to enforce that. And at least having it come before the community board, we would know the size of the establishment, where it's located, and ask questions. So how is that going to take place?
Right. So the Board of Standards and Appeals would no longer be involved at all. So the Department of Buildings would require that the person submitting that documentation is a licensed engineer. And so they do have, I don't know if it's called a code of ethics, but I mean, they are, signing off on their professional license, and which is something that I think is commonly done for many components of construction or building permits. And then I think just on the last point, and it touches on a comment earlier, there is certainly a trade-off here in terms of removing some community oversight in each individual gym, and I don't want to sort of sidestep that. I think you're absolutely right, and gyms today, it takes about $30,000 to $50,000 for a facility to go through this special permit process. They're paying architects and land use attorneys to represent them. And what it means is it's really difficult for businesses, and we think it keeps out the smaller businesses and independent businesses. So SoulCycle and Planet Fitness have that kind of capital to go through the process. And the smaller businesses, either they sort of operate under the table, or without the special permit, or they don't open in New York City. And I think there are more. We've looked at the density of these kinds of facilities. There are many more in Manhattan and Western Brooklyn and Queens. There are many parts of the city that really have very few of these businesses. And so I think we're very aware of that trade-off, and I think are hoping that this is a way to kind of I think we're just hoping this allows more businesses to open in more parts of the city, and sort of lowers that barrier to entry. But you're right, it does reduce some community oversight, and I think
Well, I'm not so much, I don't see, the community oversight isn't necessary if there's a mechanism in place for sufficient government oversight. But it doesn't sound to me, unless you're telling me that there are going to be more people at the DOB to review these in the way that they should be reviewed, then we're really just, somebody looks at somebody's certification and they just move on. So, I mean, anything that goes along with this has to increase the budget of the DOB to do this. I'm done.
Next is Rebecca. Rebecca's next.
Hi, thank you, and thank you for staying and answering all our questions. I guess mine is more of kind of a statement, which is reading through the proposal and all of the issues that we raised in concern about the citywide hotel tax amendment is being used here as a justification for this when it comes to special permits, not just the time and the cost, how getting rid of these special permits in this case would boost the economy after the pandemic. And I just don't understand how the two can work in tandem when one is trying to change business, hotels or businesses too, their ability to build as of right, whereas this is changing something. So I don't know if you were involved with that citywide tax amendment as well. Were there conversations made? It just seems a little confusing to me.
Yeah, so I can't speak directly to the citywide hotels project, but you know, our agency very frequently talks about the value of as of right zoning and you know, making sure that businesses can open with, you know, without too many barriers to entry. You know, I think one difference here is that hotels tend to be much larger facilities, and so there is more potential for conflict in certain areas. And I think another issue that we were considering is that you know, gyms are in our mind are commercial, you know, or commercial facilities like other retail and services, and hotels are on sort of a line where they're somewhat residential in nature and somewhat commercial in nature, and so they have a potential to create conflicts in a pretty wide range of areas. But I think it's a good point that, you know, these are in some ways moving in opposite directions, and you know, we see this as the right move for this industry that has really been hampered by a special permit for decades.
Right away.
Thank you. So there seems to be an inconsistency with yet another city effort to help businesses, which is the reduction or elimination of fines and fees for failure to comply with city requirements in all kinds of areas such as health and buildings and transportation. And so if you're talking about allowing businesses to operate based on self-certification and requiring certain noise reductions and mitigation, and yet the city is waiving penalties for failure to comply, there's no oversight at all, in addition to the points raised by Valerie, for instance, and Sharon and other people. So I'm not really sure that this doesn't sound like a complete free-for-all.
Yeah, I'm not personally aware of changes that have occurred related to fines and fees, but we certainly met with the Department of Buildings, and they feel like this is a proposal that, you know, they're supportive of and that they feel is enforceable, but I can't speak to the specifics.
One of our city council members, Keith Powers' office, spoke at the small business committee meeting, and there's a bill that's waiting for the mayor's signature that's been passed by the city council calling for reduction or complete elimination of fines and fees for small businesses to help them get back on their feet again. But there just doesn't seem to be any mechanism for compliance here with any of the rules, and they're starting out with that. So I'm just not sure, and it doesn't seem that that was something that is aware of. And yet, if this passes and the mayor signs that city council legislation, there's not going to be any mechanism to require compliance. That's all. I think.
Get it, Helper?
First, with respect to community oversight, I'm very much in favor of facilitating business. I don't think it hurts us at all. market will take care of it. We're not going to get a gym next to a gym next to a gym. But I think if we have small businesses who are astute about where to locate, which most of them will be, get the right balance, businesses. Self-certification as an architect. I tell you, I put my license on the line. Unless I knew it perfectly met the zoning, perfectly met the building code, and it perfectly met the health code. And all of those codes are involved. When it comes to noise, you're right, the acoustical consultants, most of them are not licensed engineers. However, they become with architects consultants. The architects then have to seal their drawings and have to take the acoustical information and take the responsibility for it. So rest assured that the acoustical
Speaking to the
consultants
mic,
most architects use,
just speak closer to the mic.
the acoustical consultants that most architects use are highly reputable, highly trained, and we can, with our own knowledge of acoustics, get a pretty good idea if what they are providing us with is in fact the necessary and appropriate information. So from the point of view of self-certification, better off having an architect self-certified and having a non-licensed professional in the building department reviewing the drawings. And last but not least, as the New York Times suggested, and as we suggested last time, this whole business about hotels is a political tale. It has nothing to do with good planning. And I don't want to repeat what we've been through last time. But we all know that there hasn't been a hotel in a manufacturing district since they put in a special permit requirement. It's just too damn expensive. And the same thing is going to happen in the commercial districts. We're not going to get hotels all over again. It costs the city billions of dollars. So I'm very much in favor of this particular zoning. And I wish city planning were consistent and not political when it came to gyms and hotels. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to take my chair hat off for a minute here and just speak as a regular member of the board and make a few quick points. The first just relates to convenience and our role on the board here. So I think many of us can remember a lot of meetings, in the land use committee where we've been meeting as a full board committee, and we've had somebody who wants to open up a gym come before us, and just in the interest of sort of expediency and convenience, it often seems sort of unnecessary or incongruous that somebody who just wants to open up a small business because of the nature of that particular small business has to come before the board and get board approval and go through this whole process. I would also observe, just on the subject of the hotel special permit, without getting into the merits of that whole question, to me, it's sort of incongruous. This board just overwhelmingly voted down a special permit requirement for hotels. So it seems to me odd that we would say that we want a special permit requirement for physical culture establishments, but not for hotels. If we're going to have it for one, or rather, I would say if we're not going to have it for one, I would say it probably makes sense not to have it for the other, particularly given the relative impact, I would say, of those two different types of institutions. And then I think just in the interest of helping small businesses, we all talk a lot about doing that, and the expense, added expense and time it takes to go through the process to get a special permit is pretty substantial. And then the last thing is, I think there's a sort of unjustified stigma essentially that's associated with the current legal regime where, I don't think it's appropriate in 2021 to say that there's almost a presumption that somebody who wants to open up a massage place or a licensed massage therapy or certainly a gym, any of those kinds of establishments, that there's a sort of, presumption that they might be engaged in some kind of illegal activity or something along those lines. And I think, frankly, it's, illegal activity can take place in a lot of different kinds of establishments. I don't think we should stigmatize these business owners in that way. So those are some things I want to get across. But I would say is, I think procedurally, a motion would be in order now if someone wants to make one. Yeah, go ahead, Chuck.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve.
Can someone hand Chuck the mic? Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this proposal with the statement that we want the city planning to make it as specific as possible, the directions to the building department about noise and vibration. Because I think a number of us have said to be a very important piece. And the building department, if they know that these are the kinds of things you have to look for, and as David said, you'll get a certification that this is what we've done, and they'll be able to easily compare it. And I know it might be tricky, but I think we know what the general things are in gyms. They may come up with some slightly different things, but I think we know.
Is there a second to that motion? Okay, there is a second. Okay, let's go next to Billy. I'm just gonna hand you my mic.
Thanks. I support this, but I wanted to ask you a question. I think what we had on our website was a map that showed how this would change the zoning. I don't know if you can see what's on my computer. And the current areas where these establishments are not allowed, it looks like they're primarily on avenue corners on certain cross streets. Could you just explain what the original logic was for not allowing these establishments at those locations, and what this change would mean in your expectation?
Sure. So when the special permit was created in the 70s, it allowed the permit could be applied for in C2 districts and higher. So all C1 districts were prohibited from the special permit. And C1 districts tend to be sort of, at least at the time they were created, kind of local retail streets. And over time, there were C19 districts were added to that. There were applications for gyms, primarily on, I believe, kind of Upper West Side and also potentially in the Upper East Side. I'm not sure. And so C19 were later added, I think, in the 90s. And then again, there was another text amendment in the early 2000s to add C18X. And so kind of continuing this trend of allowing high density C1 districts where it seemed appropriate to have these kinds of facilities. And so this basically is moving in that same trajectory of saying, there are a few other very high density C1 districts in the city. And those are primarily in Manhattan, where it seemed very appropriate to us to have the larger gyms. And so that's kind of the expansion is a few C18 districts and also C1 overlays that are mapped with R9 and R10, really high density C1 overlays.
Okay, anybody else from the board? Okay, Marco calls the question. Does a second. Okay, anyone opposed to that? No? Okay, let's use the same procedure. So raise your hand if you want to vote no or abstain or not voting for cause.
Alita? No. Michelle?
No.
Ed? No. Peggy?
No.
Hold on. Lowell?
No.
Sharon? You're voting no? Okay. I will tabulate that for you, but it looks like the resolution passes.
Thank you. All right, next we're going to move to the public session. So I'm going to read out the names of the folks who have signed up to speak in the public session. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to line up at the makeshift lectern that we have where the mic will soon be. I'm going to remind folks from the public, you have 2 minutes only to speak, and we'll time you, and Will's very strict. So with that, we're going to start with Lo Vandervalk is first, followed by Matthew Bauer, followed by Alita Camp, followed by Julie Schneider. So if folks can line up in a socially distanced manner, please, near where the mic is, we will take it from there. So go ahead, Lo, when you are ready.
My name is Lo Vanderwalt. I'm representing Carnegie Neighbors. I'd like to speak about the subway bonus legislation. You voted in favor of it. Still an active topic. Friday, the last written submissions have been made. And then after that, we'll go to the.
Can you speak more to the mic, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. After that, we'll go to the city council. Carnegie Neighbors is of course in favor of ADA, and there are of course, this is a very complex law, and I just want to alert this community board that George James has just completed his 9-page memorandum that he's submitting to the Planning Commission, which he sort of castigates the MTA for putting us in this position. That there are other ways of funding these elevators, and even what is proposed is not the best way to get as many elevators in the shortest period of time. He believes that's wrong too. We're going to put George James' memo on the Carnegie Hill Neighbors website. It's not there now, but it will be there at the end of the day tomorrow. And we hope that you will read this and treat this thoughtfully. Give this as much time as you do the blood center. This is a very important citywide issue. It's going to impact a lot. It's going to impact this site right here. If it can be shown that it's 500 feet within the subway at 96th and 96th and Lex, by adding another staircase at 95th Street, for example, then this site can be developed. It can be given a 14.4. It'll be too tempting for Hunter not to convert this into a development. I think you really got to consider the implications, and that's why I'm alerting you to.
Thank you.
We're in favor.
Thank you.
But not the specific.
Thank you, Ron. Next is Matthew Bauer.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Matt Bauer. I'm the president of the Madison Avenue Business Improvement District. I just wanted to be here for the first public meeting. We're all getting together. I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of the businesses of Madison Avenue for your support, community board support of the community, the business. I can't tell you how much it means to all of them that you've been here and supporting our local businesses. It has been a tough time on the avenue, as you all know, but there are some very positive signs happening right now. Our Glean team, and public safety staff, which has been here throughout the entire pandemic, sanitizing all our street furniture still, and we're seeing some great new openings on Madison from Manolo Blahnik, opening up last month. Today, you'll see the scaffolding coming down from one side of Brunello Cucinelli opening up, and William Greenberg Desserts, greatest black and white cookies in New York. They're expanding right now. So all very positive things. Tourism is coming back. We're seeing our hotels busy with some local visitors. Of course, the Frick Madison here bringing visitors to the neighborhood. So there's really been a lot of positive things happening here. And I just really wanted to say thank you on behalf of all of our businesses and our board of directors for all that the community has done to keep Madison Avenue going in these tough times. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Next, Alita Camp.
Hi, wow, it felt like a party in the beginning, but that's the wrong attitude. I just wanted to say Valerie Mason and I, as co-chairs of the Small Business Committee, to alert small business owners and anyone who frequents restaurants to look at NYS or nysmallbusinessrecovery.com for a lot of information about grants, particularly grants for restaurants that have lost revenue during COVID and have hired new workers. There's $5,000 of grants for each new worker, up to $50,000 per restaurant. So we just want to encourage everyone. There's more information on the CB8 website and on the Small Business Committee page and through Assemblymember Rebecca C. Wright's website and office. So thank you very much. Please tell the restaurants that you go to look into the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Judy Schneider.
My name is Judy Schneider, and I'm speaking about the restaurant that was listed on the Street Life agenda as American Pizza. I spoke with the owner, Rob Girola, after the meeting, and he was very apologetic that he could not connect to the meeting as he had just gotten a new Apple phone that day and was having problems with it. He told me that the restaurant will have a rebirth and continue to be called the Spotted Dog, which is the name of the former restaurant. He assured me the only music will be from a jukebox. There will be no live music, no karaoke, no anything of the sort. He was currently looking at an apartment within a block of the restaurant so that he could be at the premises and see to it that it would be properly run. As a person who lives across the street from the restaurant, I would urge all the board members to support this new establishment, which would be a significant addition to the neighborhood. Thank you. I don't know if I mentioned it, but on your agenda, it's called American Pizza, but that's not going to be its name. It's going to be the Spotted Dog.
Thank you. All right, let's move now to adoption of the agenda. So everybody has the agenda. Michelle, go ahead. There's a second. Okay, anybody opposed to that? No, great, okay. Let's also go to adoption of the minutes. Great, great. Anyone opposed? No, terrific. Okay, let's go to the Manhattan Borough President's Report. I think Isabel's here. I don't know if Gail's planning to come. Go ahead, yeah, Isabel. She's gonna be here, that's amazing. Okay, next let's do the elected official reports. So if folks can just line up here at the lectern, we're gonna do it like the old days in person. You each have 2 minutes.
Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Wilfredo Lopez. I am the new Abby for Councilmember Ben Kalis' office. So we said goodbye to Abby last month as she starts law school. So I'm happy to fill in for her. Just very briefly, obviously the Blood Center conversation continues. Like many of you, Councilmember last week reiterated his opposition to the current plan as it stands. And we'll continue to fight that as the plan approaches the city council for a vote. Sorry. Okay, so in June, we announced $80 million in addition to the $160 million that we've been able to get for the Esplanades in conjunction with the East Side Esplanade Task Force. This week, we mentioned that $9 million was set aside for Rupert Park. It's a 2-phase renovation. This is funding through our office, the Borough President's office, as well as the Speaker of the City Council, Corey Johnson's office. This past weekend, we also cut the ribbon on the new FDR Hope Memorial on Roosevelt Island. And we unveiled that with Assemblymember Rebecca Seawright and the President and CEO of Roosevelt Island Operation, or REOC, I should say, Sheldon Haynes. And in response to the 20-foot sinkhole that opened up last week on 89th Street between York and East End, we continue to work with the Department of Transportation, the EPA, and Con Edison to fast track those repairs. And we will be introducing legislation later this month in order to create a branch of the DOB that deals specifically with high-risk areas for these types of sinkholes. They exist all over the East Side, and they should be looked at with more care. For any additional updates from our office, you can always go to benkalis.com/events. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Violet from Councilmember Pete Power's office. It's like very strange. It's very nice to be with all of you here. So I'll be around, and if anyone wants to say hi, like please don't hesitate to. I'd love to introduce myself to more people. I wanted to quickly speak about the budget that passed. We, obviously haven't had a full board since it passed earlier this month. So here are some key items to note from our office. New York City Public Schools will receive an additional $605 million for the next school year. This will ensure that every school is fully funded under the Fair Student Funding Formula. $27 million will go to a citywide literacy program. Additional resources have been allocated for a full-time social worker or an in-house mental health clinic. As part of trying to help clean up NYC post-pandemic, cuts to the NYC sanitation department have been reversed, which is good news. And we launched the City Cleanup Corps, a new recovery program that will beautify our streets while creating over 10,000 jobs in the process. As we're all hopefully excited for, the city will restart its curbside composting program this fall. So enrollment will start on August 2nd, and collection services will begin in October. Our office will be doing outreach in August as well, but you'll be able to sign up by calling 311 or visiting nyc.gov/curbside composting. Also happy to report that Councilmember Powers has allocated $5,000 in discretionary expense funding to CB8. And finally, the city has invested $1 billion into the rainy day fund. So those are just the quick updates. If anyone has any more questions, you can come up to me, you can call our office, or you can email me at gehr, GEHR, @council.nyc.gov. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Jack from Assemblyman Stewart's office. It's nice to see you all here in person. Just to point out a few things that the Assembly member has been doing since the last full board. She was really proud to stand with the community and voice our opposition to the blood center at Gail Brewer's youth hearing just a few weeks ago. We also held our 50th town hall that we've had since the start of the pandemic. We talked about our small businesses with speakers from New York State, Empire State Development, New York City Small Business Services, and the co-chairs here of your Small Business Committee. Just a few days after that, the Assembly member also spoke again, just folks, about small businesses on the Community Board Committee. So if you know, as Alita said, if you know of any businesses that may need help in any applications to these grants, please have them reach out to us. We'll be very happy to help. And the Assembly member also was really happy to attend the Roosevelt Island FDR Hope Memorial. It was an unveiling, and we were able to also secure a $150,000 donation for that memorial through an anonymous constituent. And we also provided the Roosevelt Island Disabled Association a citation, as they do great work on the island. The memorial is really great. If you're ever on Roosevelt Island, definitely take a look at it. Also, just to let everyone know, the Assembly member is a member of the Judiciary Committee, is traveling back and forth to Albany this summer to work on the investigations into the governor as that continues throughout the summer. A couple of future events. Every Thursday, we have a mask giveaway at our office and hand sanitizer. So if you ever in need of that or know of anyone, please send them our way. We do a Zoom knitting social every Thursday. We have a housing legal clinic every other Tuesday. And I also want to let everyone know that the 19th Precinct National Night Out is back. It'll be Tuesday, August 3rd, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's at John Jay Park this year rather than Crossroads Park. That's it for me.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Audrey from State Senator Liz Kruger's office. Nice to be with you here this evening. A few things. One is that next week, next Wednesday, we've made it through ranked choice voting, our first foray in it, but we will be having the Senate Elections Committee, of which Senator Kruger will be participating, is having a hearing. It's going to be at Medgar Evers College live in person, but they are accepting written testimony and in-person testimony. And they really want to hear directly, not from people from the Board of Elections, but from voters, poll workers, candidates, anybody who wants to share their experiences, good, bad, with the ranked choice voting primary in June. So if you'd like some information, it's on the Senate webpage. You can also contact our office, 212-490-9535, and we can share that information with you. I believe it's in the morning, 10 o'clock. It's July 28th at Medgar Evers College. Although this is absolutely delightful to be out here this evening, I really appreciate your creativity and innovation. I do want you all to know that Senator Kruger has co-sponsored legislation in the Senate to allow for the open meetings to be more flexible again, to allow for the meetings to be on Zoom or hybrid or in person. I'll email that piece of legislation to Will, but I do have a few hard copies, which I guess I'll leave with the secretary this evening. And that's it. It is really delightful, but I too would appreciate the hybrid approach again. Thanks a lot and good night.
Thank you very much. All right, next item on the agenda is the chair's report. So I have a few items to mention. First of all, I want to thank our council members, Ben Kalos and Pete Powers, for the discretionary grant that we got that Violet mentioned. I also want to note, as Jack mentioned, Borough President Gail Brewer had her hearing on the Blood Center on June 12th. So I was there to testify, and I presented our testimony about our resolution, and I submitted our resolution and company materials to the borough president for her to take into account as she's making her recommendation. I want to thank my fellow board members who are also there to testify, as well as members of the public who are there to testify. It's very, very important that folks continue to show up at public meetings like this. And also I want to thank Borough President Gail Brewer for hosting the meeting. She didn't have to have a public hearing like that, and she did. So we appreciate that she did that. I said previously, I'll be giving updates from the Goddard Community Advisory Group that's been meeting. I'm going to just be very brief. I'm going to defer a more substantive update to the next meeting in the interest of time here, but just they have been meeting, and the meetings have been very productive, I would say. So I'll tell you more about that at the next board meeting. And then the last thing is I just want to say a few words about Jordan Wu, our public member who, as the board members know, sadly passed away earlier this month. And you know, many people know, Jordan was a very, very dedicated public member of this community board. I just want to tell a brief story. Shortly before I became the chair of the board, I got an email from Jordan, and I had known him a little bit, you know, from going to meetings in person. He was a regular attendee at all our meetings. But he sent me an email, and it was an email in which he said, he told me that he regularly emails committee chairs and regularly emails the chair of the board, and asked me if it would be okay once I became chair of the board for him to email me. And this was an email, when I say that it happened shortly before I became the chair, he sent this email, I think it was like 5:30 or something on New Year's Eve. So I think this email, it's a, you know, it's a small thing, but I think it really exemplifies a number of things about Jordan and his service to the board. And first of all, it bespeaks his dedication. And as everybody who worked with him knows, he was very, very committed to the board. He was very, very committed to the idea of public service through the community board. And when he did email me, you know, he would always send very well thought out emails and very observant things about things in the community, and a lot of stuff that we would end up following up on, and some stuff that, you know, people on the board didn't necessarily hear about. It was sort of going on in the background, but it was stuff that we would actually pursue, and really, you know, it made a difference in a sort of quiet way behind the scenes. And then the other thing I think that email exemplified was just his courtesy and his civility, and the fact that he had asked me before he was going to, you know, send me a bunch of emails, I thought was a very nice thing for him to do. And I think all of it together, you know, it exemplifies what I think are really the highest aspirations, I would say, of public service through the community boards, of dedication to the community and also civility. And I think those are really the key to successful community boards and a successful community process. So I just want to say again that we're going to miss Jordan, and once again express my condolences to his family. So with that, I'll turn it over to Will for district manager.
Well, I can't follow that up about Jordan. So echo everything that Russell just said. He was just a fantastic human, and we're really going to miss him. I'll share one little story. Chuck will probably remember this. We were talking about Link kiosks back, I don't know, what, 7, 8 years ago. And Jordan shows up with his wife, Kathy, and a full-size cutout of a Link kiosk next to his very petite wife. And it was just like that sort of thing that you'd go above and beyond. He's just fantastic, fantastic person. So we're going to miss him. I'll defer my report just to say, have a great summer. Great to see all of you guys in person again. And thank you for being here.
Thank you. I am going to echo that. It is very nice to see everybody in person again, and I miss you all. So with that, we are going to go to the committee reports, and we're starting with the Landmarks Committee. So we will turn it over to David. Turn the mic.
Unfortunately, Jane couldn't be here tonight, so I'll go through all 4 of them. The first one is 1022 Lexington Avenue. Looking at the images with you. Come up on the screen. Okay. First image is, they came back to us 3 times. The first image was approved, but it wasn't satisfactory to the owner and the tenants. You'll notice that upper corner where there is nothing built, and you'll notice that the windows at the lower level are all clear plate glass. If you go to the next one, you will see that now infill that top corner. All of the brick is shown darker. It's all going to be painted the same color, and they have gone to multi-pane lights every place except the last easterly portion where they're basically leaving plate glass windows on a low masonry wall. In any event, we approved this. I think 8-1. There was one in opposition. Somebody would like to speak in behalf, and I'm sure there's somebody who wants to speak against. So I see only one hand, which is against. So please, Martha. Thank you.
Thank you. I oppose this application because this proposal.
Closer to the mic.
Thank you. I oppose this application because this proposal creates a hazardous condition for the residential section. One of the proposed modifications is to relocate the exit from Avenue to 73rd Street, providing providing one means of egress, and if there is an emergency, the residents won't have the possibility to escape. Therefore, this is a serious safety violation. Indeed, according with New York State Multiple Dwelling Article 6, Title 2, Fire Protection, Section 187, egress, quote, every other dwelling shall have two independent means of egress, end of quote. New York City Building Code, Section 27366, exit from floor, quote, there shall be at least two independent exits, remote from each other, from every floor of a building, except that only one exit may be provided from floors in 1 and 2 family dwellings. In addition, this applicant is self-certifying his application. Nobody reviewed his applications. In DOB, nobody reviewed exactly what he's doing. So therefore, this is obvious abuse of his professional certification privileges. In short, if this applicant, I'm sorry, is going to review it, he has to modify his landmark proposal. Finally, yes, I am an advocate who believes safety is paramount. Thank you.
I absolutely respect and believe every word that Marco said. I have no doubt that he's absolutely correct. And I actually would urge either the chair of the board or of the committees or whatever you think is appropriate to write a letter to the DOB alerting them of Marco's comments and our concerns. However, I supported this application wholeheartedly, actually, because not only because our landmarks committee is concerned with appropriateness, we don't disregard safety, but that's not what we were voting on. And I hope we can resolve the safety issue by writing an alert letter to the DOB. But this applicant came back 3 times, and each time he was completely attentive to our suggestions and to our changes. He was a very, very, very cooperative applicant. And I think in the end, we got pretty much what we wanted. So for that reason, that we got what we wanted, that it is appropriate, and also that the applicant was so cooperative, I wholeheartedly support the application. Again, though, I would like the board to notify the DOB. Thank you.
David.
I certainly respect Marco, but I also respect you, David. And I know sometimes you say, you know, a particular issue, perhaps your safety is not an issue that falls within the purview of landmarks. But if you have a comment on that, I would appreciate it, because I'd like clarification.
I think Michelle already started to speak about it. Our committee votes on the appropriateness, and we leave it up to the Department of Buildings to decide whether it meets the building code or not. And when an applicant comes to us, they have to get approved both by landmarks and by the Department of Buildings. So I certainly am open to the possibility of saying that we think there may be a problem from a building code point of view as a separate issue. But in terms of what we are tasked to do, which is to vote on the basis of appropriateness, I think Michelle pointed out very well. They came to us 3 times, they were very attentive, and we believe that they met all of our requests in terms of modifying the building to meet what we thought was appropriate for the building. So, in Marco, all of us felt it was appropriate and that it should be approved by the board as a whole.
All the questions?
Second.
All in favor? Roll, please.
We can use the same procedure, right? So,
Okay. All those opposed, abstaining, or not voting for cause, raise your hands. Marco? Peter? Abstain. Anyone? Yeah, abstain? Okay. All right, it appears the motion passed, and we'll record the votes.
And the previous resolution passed by a vote of 28 to 6.
you gotta use the mic. Rebecca, you gotta use the mic.
Oh, sorry.
I thought it was loud enough. The previous resolution passed by a vote of 28 to 6 to 0.
We're up to 118 East 62nd Street. There are 2 images for that as well. The first image shows you the areaway fence that's there that was approved back in '96. And then the second image shows you the fence that they have proposed. Essentially, we felt that the fence that was there was appropriate because it related to all of the metal on the building and it related to the architectural character of the house. And we felt that this very simple industrial fence was off-putting and not appropriate. So, Marco?
Thank you for your question.
This was a unanimous disapproval.
Okay, please raise your hand if you are abstaining, not voting for cause, or voting no. Yeah, this motion is a disapproval. Anyone? Okay, the motion passes.
And we're now going to 945 Madison Avenue, which is the Brick Madison. 2 images. The issue here is that there is signage that says Brick Madison, which was meant to be temporary. But in order to get a certificate of appropriateness to maintain it for another 2 years while the brick itself is under renovation, they need to go to landmarks. So this was not unanimous, and I personally had to recuse myself. If you go to the second image, you'll see that Madison is. You'll see that Madison is down below. So the idea was that.
Speaking of the mic.
You see the word Madison, and hence Brick Madison. So I don't know if anybody wants to speak about it, since it was not a unanimous vote, but there were some opposed and some in favor.
I voted in favor of the application. First, well, for the following reasons. The first is that it was previously approved by LPC. And so these decals were just coming to us, and the renewal is for the end of the first tenure at the Met-Royer building. The second was because at Landmarks, we've seen so many different applications where the signage is intrusive upon the building, and the decal nature of the signage, it kind of represents the temporary nature of the frick stay at the Met-Royer, and it is also removable at the end of the day. And so they were very careful to not impinge upon the building. And in the past, the Met-Royer building has, and while it was a Whitney, they used banners, they used flags, they used all sorts of things to draw attention from the public to the building. And so the frick has been taking a very light touch in terms of the building structure. And so allowing that beautiful, brutalist, well, can you call it brutalist design beautiful? But that allowing that brutalist design to show itself. And then the last thing is that one of the comments in the course of our discussion at the committee was whether or not the decal the lettering should be smaller, and whether Frick Madison together as a should be visible from the street. And as David mentioned, the designer of the decal said, well, that the purpose of the way that the signage was designed was so you could see part of it from the street, but as you're getting closer, more and more of it is revealed to you. And secondly, for me personally, I thought that it was interesting. It appealed to me because you could see the full Frick Madison lettering from the sunken garden. So from within the Frick, you get the full view and the design of the decal sign that you wouldn't get from outside. And so it does serve its purpose as that luring, enticing signage. And again, finally, that this is all temporary. This is just to support Frick Madison while they're in the Met-Royer building until the end of their stay there, where they will hopefully move back into the Frick building and we'll be able to enjoy the Frick building.
Anybody else want to speak? Michelle?
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, so you can see this was a very split vote. And those that voted for probably felt as Sarah did, and those that opposed, which I was one of them, was for this reason. There was no benefit of having the Frick being visible from the street, so we can understand why they needed to identify it as the Frick. But when Madison is down at the garden, it's not visible from the street. Whether or not both signs are visible from the interior seem to be irrelevant because they would be visible backwards, and once you're inside, you don't need it to be identified. The other thing that to me was bothersome was that an address on an orange background, or an orange or reddish orange, you can see it on the picture, was put above the doorway. I have no recollection of that ever being with the Frick. And as you can see, there's a mounted signboard outside that announces the exhibition. And there's no reason that a full address can't be placed on that board. So for all these reasons, yes, it's good that it's removable, and yes, it's good that it's coming off in a couple of years. But for all these reasons, it's particularly unattractive now and unnecessary from a PR and an identification point of view, which is the whole purpose of the signage. So that's why I oppose. Thank you.
In the rear?
I'd like to move to approve.
All in favor? All opposed? Please call the roll.
If you'd like to vote no, abstain, or not vote for cause, please raise your hand. Michelle?
No,
Elizabeth?
absolutely no.
Margot?
No.
Harrison? Yeah, anyone else? Looks like the resolution passes.
And the last item, 19 East 74th Street. There's only one image for this because it compares the existing and the proposed. It's a 1930s facade added onto a 19th century building. And essentially, it's sort of the 1930s semi-industrial style. On the left, you can see that it has a single entrance and multi-pane steel windows, which was very typical of the time and had a little bit of an industrial character, which was typical for the 30s. On the right, you'll see that there are now two doors symmetrically because this is going to become a two-family house. And the windows, again, are steel windows. They are multi-pane, but they are not as small panes as what you see from the 1930s. What was explained to us by the architect, and I, as an architect, would have to agree with him. You had much smaller elements in the 1930s, and you had single panes of glass. When you have to do energy efficient insulated glazing, and you have to have thicker mullions to do it, you wind up not being able to replicate those very small panes. There are ways to do it. They're either costly and you wind up with even smaller panes, or you wind up applying a grid over a larger piece of glass, which then is not truly multi-plane layers of glass. So in any event, that's what was explained to us, and that's why you see slightly different proportions. The rear is similar in terms of the replacement of combination of wood windows and steel windows. The window in the middle at the bottom is a wood window. It's going to be replaced as a wood window. And the metal, the decorative metal on the existing door has not been replicated. They don't know that that door is original, and the decorative quality of it is not typical for that period of time. So what they've done is use something which is a little more vertical, and although it's hard to see here, those verticals end in triangular elements that tie the verticals together. So essentially, this was also a mixed vote. So I don't know if anybody wants to speak in favor or opposed.
Sorry, really quickly, I was wondering if you wanted to change your vote for the last one, because you voted not voting for college and committee.
I don't want to change it. I'm still recusing myself, and I can tell you why if you feel the need to know.
No, just want to make sure we got that on the record.
Yeah, you do have to say what the cause is.
The reason I am recusing myself and not voting for the cause is because I represented two community groups in opposition to the frick. We won the first time around by stopping the frick from building in the garden. We lost the second time around for what I believe is going to be a tragedy when we ultimately see that renovation and the enlargement of the building.
So I oppose, you can see it's a mixed vote, because I oppose because I think if you're looking at the image and you're comparing the two images, it's way too much glazing, and I am not convinced that the only way they could get energy efficient glass is by having to have this size. I'm not opposed to imposing mullions on top of it. I would like truly divided lights, but I'm not convinced that they couldn't do it. And I think if you look at it, it's really, really has a real effect on the character of the building. So I hope you don't approve it. And I suspect if we sent them back to the drawing board, they would come up with energy efficient windows in the original appropriate size. Thanks.
Anybody else?
Call the question.
All in favor? All opposed? Call the roll.
Okay. Once again, those who are voting against the resolution and, or abstaining or not voting for cause? Okay, so I'll start with Michelle.
No.
Okay. Elizabeth,
Abstain.
Marco?
No.
Gail?
No.
Alita? Oh, okay, Rita.
No.
Okay. All right. We'll give the tally, but it appears the resolution. Oh, was there another? Oh, yes, abstain. Okay, great. And is that everybody? Yes, as in the gathering gloom. Okay.
Okay, Transportation Committee, Chuck and Craig. take it away.
Transportation, nice to see everybody. We have 3 resolutions. They're items 4, 6, and 7, and they were all unanimous. Item 4 was the request for 1-hour commercial loading zone in front of Morton Williams Supermarket at 1066 Third Avenue. And what the problem is that they have a loading zone, commercial loading zone, that says 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And what happens is Morton Williams store, they have trucks coming of all sizes at all times of the day. And the big box, the big stores and the Amazons and the Fresh Direct, they come in and just park the truck all day and stay there. And they take up all the space, and his trucks have to double park, and it's a big problem. So what he wanted was to have a 1-hour zone, so if anyone parked, they could only stay an hour, and he could obviously self-enforce that and call for people once the hour has passed, call for enforcement. And so while we knew that might not turn out in practice to be the best thing, we had a big discussion about the only thing that we could think of to really give him some help. And they operate, I think, 3 stores and very committed to New York City, and it's a small business, and we wanted to try to support them as much as we could. Then we had, and really in honor of Jordan, because he always didn't like these things, we had 2 revocable consents for snow melt systems. One at 1228 Madison Avenue, and the other at 172 East 73rd Street. And they were all, systems. One system was one that you didn't have to do any maintenance on, and it was just an embedded system. And we asked them to post a sign that warns that the system's there, so because the only issue would be if someone with the machine broke the pipe system by drilling into it. And so that would be a warning that, be careful, there's a system there. The other one was a slightly different system, and but we actually asked them to put the same kind of sign there, and those again were all unanimous. And I don't know if there's any questions that you had. Yes. Yes, you could, unless someone has an objection.
I'll second.
No objection? Okay. The question's been called on all 3 items. All in favor of calling the question? Aye? Okay, why don't we call the roll? Yeah.
It is included what I recommended to put an RPC in the second application.
No, they have what's equivalent to that in there, Marco. They have it, they took care of that. They took care of that issue. Okay, Secretary, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, if you are abstaining, not voting for cause, or voting no, please raise your hand. Marco?
I'm going to say no to the application that they said that is coming included in the system. The other applications I support. So I think it's one of them is, I don't know which one.
Which one did you want to vote no on? Was it
the application that I request that should be installed on RPC?
which one was that? The installed, that might have been the first one?
No, the second one.
The second one, okay. The RPC, that's the second one. So that's item number 7. Marco wants to vote
Got it.
no on.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, thanks.
Thanks, everyone. The Twilight Zone.
Thank you very much. So I just want to recognize our Borough President, Gail Brewer, who's here, and we're very, very grateful to have her with us today.
This is the coolest community board meeting in the history of community boards. I've been in every goddamn community board, and this is it. So I want to congratulate you. You got perfect weather, great discussion. You're outdoors. This is serious. So congratulations. I love it. Oh my gosh. I'll be very quick. I think you know about the blood center. We had a hearing. I want to thank the community board, certainly your chair, for participating. I've done everything I can to be as supportive of what I think the community board's position is, and we look forward to working with you on this topic. Just in terms of some of the little projects that we're working on, when the cooling center, when it got hot, the cooling center had no wayfinding. They had the wrong hours on the website. They had the wrong location. But we did a little press conference, and I think that has been straightened out. I just want to let you know, when it's hot out and people don't have air conditioning, they can die, and they need to have a cooling center. No kidding. We also have been looking at scaffolding. That's an issue. There was a building in Manhattan that had 15 years with absolutely no activity. So now we're looking at all of the permits and seeing what is more than 5 years, and we'll work with the community board because I know you get the same kind of complaints. We also went to all the polling sites to see what's acceptable. I know the Board of Elections tries, but that's a serious issue, and we're working with them, with the Sydney, which is Center for Independence of the Disabled, on that. We're also going to all the summer rising sites and all the summer meal sites that we have over the years to see if they are what they say they are. Very quickly, our website has the applications due August 20th for what I call expense money. It's officially called the Community Award Program, but basically it's for small nonprofits, small amounts of money that will help address your program needs. Capital funding, which we have allocated, that'll be up on our website very soon, but here, just a couple of things in Board 8, Asphalt Green, Kohler. I want to thank all the work that has gone into Kohler. You have been a phenomenal supporter of Kohler on Roosevelt Island. Association to Benefit Children, and I think there are others, but I don't have the whole list here. I want to say thank you to everybody who comes to our Tuesday at 3. You really should participate. I know Trisha has been there and others, because we're doing 2 things. We're getting totally updated information on the vaccines. Recently, an attorney who worked with Elizabeth Holtzman was really clear about what is masked and what is not, and how you don't get sued for how you handle that issue. These are kinds of things, and then now we're also dealing with budget. Exactly what is in the state budget, exactly what's in the city budget. How are we keeping track of the gazillions of federal money? And just recently, there's tons of money now for climate, environment. Who knew? So those are the kinds of things that are helpful, I think, for your community board to know, and not to mention all the housing issues, which we also heard about. And then finally, I just want to say that one other issue, the libraries, we get $500,000 for all of the Manhattan libraries, but there are a lot in your area, and we hope it's helpful. And I want to thank Rita and others who came to Rupert Park, because with the council member, we were able to allocate quite a bit of money, and that's a great park, and it needs a big update. Those are just some of the things, and I look forward to being with Community Board 8 again in this fabulous location. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, the next item on the agenda is the Street Life Committee report, which I will do because unfortunately Abraham is not able to be here, and Kyle, who chaired that meeting, also is unable to be here. So there are 7 unanimous items and 1 that was non-unanimous. So Marco?
Call the question.
On all the unanimous ones together?
Yes.
Great. Okay, any seconds on that?
Second.
Yes, excellent. Anyone opposed? No? Any objections to taking them together? No? Okay, great. Call the roll, please.
If you'd like to vote no, abstain, or not vote for cause, please raise your hand. Seeing none, the resolution passed unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, and then the 1 non-unanimous one is 1C on the agenda. This is American Pizza. So I don't know if anybody wants to speak to this one who was at the meeting, or if somebody wants to make the motion, or sorry, make it, yeah, go ahead, Marco.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, well, it's called a question, it's what I should ask, because the motion was to approve. So, anyone opposed to calling the question? Opposed? Yes, go ahead. Marco, yeah, okay, Marco, can you summarize Lorraine's position? Do you remember what her objection was?
I think it was a replacement of an existing store. And they're going to 50% business. The hours, I don't recall.
Who was the
But-
Yeah.
The hours that.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. The hours was during the week between, I think, 9 to 2 o'clock in the morning. And the weekend was until 4 o'clock. And I think this is reasonable in this kind of business. And this is what we approve.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we can call the roll on this.
Okay, once again, hands up if you are opposed, abstaining, or not voting for cause. And as the light fails, it appears it passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. So next we're on to old business. I'm not aware of any. New business. Go ahead, Valerie. Let's get Valerie and Mike, or just come to the front.
So, just, Russell mentioned on next steps on the blood center. The city planning commission will be having a hearing, a public hearing on July 29th. It starts at 10 o'clock. There are a number of other items on the agenda, but we did have a really good turnout at the borough president's hearing, and again, wanted to thank her for having that. But it's really important that we keep up the pressure and we continue to come out on this issue and express our disfavor with this proposed project. So I would urge you to come to that.
Yeah,
Can
go
you
ahead.
post the information?
Yeah, I think we'll.
Yeah, I can get it out.
We'll
You
send
get
it
it
out.
out, and,
Yeah.
and also if there's a place to submit written, because even if we do show up, it's nice to submit written testimony as
And,
well.
and submit written testimony
Yes,
as well.
so
Yeah,
if that can be on a flyer that you send out, that'd be great.
right.
Elizabeth, this is the one you asked me about, right?
And the city planning commission is holding the hearing one day after the borough president's comments are due, which is completely outrageous.
Is it in person?
No.
It is in person, yes. Yeah. It is. It's also on
Yeah.
Zoom, but I'm not sure you can testify via Zoom. I'm not. You can? Okay. There was one other old business matter that I just wanted to bring up, and that comes from the congestion pricing task force. I don't know if you read in the newspaper this week, the mayor urging that congestion pricing be put in place on January 1st, 2022. And I know we discussed this in the planning congestion pricing meeting earlier, but I wanted to read the statement from the MTA in response. Just
Let's save it for because there's a task force meeting.
oh, okay.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Is it tomorrow? Okay,
Yeah.
well, come to that.
Okay. So we'll send out info about the, thank you very much, Valerie, for mentioning that, the CPC, that's okay, the CPC meeting, so everyone will have the details about remote and in person and all that kind of stuff, so. All right, with that, Barry.
Quickly, if we can ask the committee chairs to ask their applicants what to remove their postings on the street sign. It would go a long way to keeping the community of Keenan meter place. They have to put them up, but after the application is heard, the committee, they should take them down and we can make that part of our agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, before we leave here, which I think we're imminently about to do, I just want to, I thank folks at the beginning, but I just want to give a special additional thanks to Leo Yu, our intern, who was the runner of the mic this evening, which is very, very helpful and really essential. Yeah, stand up, Leo. Thank you. Okay, all right, is there a motion to adjourn? Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, anyone opposed?
Second.
No, great. Okay, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I told you.